Hello everybody, welcome to our daily live broadcast. Thank you for joining us today. We're so happy you're here. Today, my name is Azwa and I'll be your host this lovely afternoon. Today is a quite special broadcast because we will bring to you not one but two animation experts that will guide you through the world of animation. Greetings, Mr. Melvin and Mr. Amirul. Woo! Hello, Mr. Melvin and Mr. Amirul. Say hi to our viewers. Hello. How are you? Have you taken your lunch yet? Oh, bagus. Alhamdulillah. Okay. So, as for our topic today, we will bring you guys to explore the world of animation. Okay, with the help of our two experts here. We will explain to you a brief introduction to animation, and we will also introduce to you guys a software that is used to produce 3D and 2D animation. Okay, so you might not want to miss this live broadcast because we will guide you through a basic animation tutorial. Okay, so Mr. Melvin.
We have problem. Kami ada masalah.
Oh, sorry, we have a technical problem.
Jom. Kau boleh lah kau punya ni.
Enggak, kau punya background ni bukan. Kau punya semua slideshow ni, yang name semua ni, semua di bawah dekat
Slideshow.
semua dekat
kamera.
main kamera.
Okay.
Cuba buka dulu slideshow tu. Nampak di belakang.
Okay, settle.
Ada lagi yang tadi tu, video semua ni pun nanti terpotong kepala dia.
Sebab tu aku buat main kamera ni ke atas. Kau buat apa kan? Okay. Settle lah.
Okay. Go.
Yeah. Okay. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Go.
Okay, sorry for the technical issue. Pardon my crew. Okay, so let's get started. So, can you tell us what is actually animation?
On mic.
So animation is a sequence of images drawn, painted, or produced by other artistic methods. They change over time to give the illusion of movement.
So, like, macam it's actually drawing lah. Dia macam drawing banyak-banyak. Lepas tu dia lukis and macam dia akan jadi animation. Lukisan tu.
Yes, dia animation tu dia combine of sketch drawing yang banyak.
Okay. Contoh macam masa sekolah rendah, my friends used to draw stickman, tahu tak? Diorang selalu lukis dekat dalam test pad, notepad kan, and then diorang flip the book. Itu, is that considered animation?
Yes. It's actually a basic kind of animation.
Oh, okay. So, what is the purpose of animation actually?
Well, basically, the purpose of animation can be differentiated into 3 categories. So, mainly for entertainment purpose, to deliver a message or information, and as a replacement due to physical or monetary constraints.
Oh, so speaking of entertainment, I'm sure I'm not saying all, but I'm sure most people watch anime. So, do you watch anime? Do you actually watch anime?
Yes.
For a time when I'm still a secondary school student, yes, I'm quite into anime, but after I further my studies into university, I stopped to watch anime.
So, this is just personal opinion. What anime do you think has the greatest animation or graphic yang you rasa memang dia punya animation and tu memang gempak lah yang you pernah tengok?
So this is my opinion, and it may vary to everyone. So for me, combining with the sound effect and the animation, I think Fire Force is a great animation that they use.
Okay, so people don't forget to watch Fire Force, okay? Don't watch, okay, sorry. So, could you list out the types of animation?
So there's actually 7 types of animation. The first is traditional animation, can be either hand drawn or cell animation. And the second one is 2D animation. The third is 3D animation. The fourth is motion graphics. And the fifth is stop motion or claymation or cutout animation. The sixth is rotoscoping. The seventh is whiteboard animation, which uses a simple design to let the audience focus on the content.
So
Last but not least, typography animation is a combination of text and motion.
So, I want to ask both of you, what do you think like the easiest types of animation to do? Is there such thing like easiest?
Well,
Or
it
your
depends
favorite?
on the animator and it depends on their field of expertise. So some may be excel very, very well in 2D animations, but some may excel much better in 3D animation, rotoscoping, etc., etc.
Oh, okay. So as animator, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the 12 principles of animation. So could you go into it a bit more?
Well, absolutely, Ms. Aswa. So in general, they include things like squash and stretch for flexibility, anticipation to get the audience ready for what's coming next, and staging to focus the audience's attention. Then there are 2 ways to animate, of course, and that's they are straight ahead action and pose to pose respectively. Follow through and overlapping actions, showing realistic motion, while slow ins and slow outs add weight to movements. Arcs make movements look more natural. Secondary action adds depth and timing affects the pace. Exaggeration makes features stand out. Solid drawing ensures they are 3-dimensional. And then appeal makes the character more interesting. So to be precise, the 12 principles of animation are the key techniques to make animations to look more real and engaging to the audience.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. So this is quite a bit personal, but can I ask you macam projek yang korang rasa paling korang bangga lah buat projek along the way you guys jadi animator?
Well, I'm honored. I have the privilege to involve myself in one of the movies produced by Walt Disney. So the movie is Ratatouille. So I'm one of the animators for it. For the
One of Ratatouille animators,
for
guys.
the movie. So I think whoever very common or very into Disney cartoons, Disney movies, you guys know what I'm talking about, Ratatouille. So yeah, you can go and have a watch to the movie that I have involved myself in the production.
Okay, so for Mr. Amirul?
So mine is I don't think that everyone knows, but I think that the project that I'm most honored that I've done with is my FYP, which is an interactive AR.
What's AR? What is AR?
So AR stands for augmented reality.
Augmented reality. So what does AR actually mean? Is it some type of animation or?
To be simplified, so AR is actually a complicated version of animation.
So there's actually a complicated version of animation. Why is it complicated?
Because
do you need to do?
it uses it involves human movements to interact. The animation interacts with human movements.
Oh, so it's like you scan. Is it?
Meaning, for example, when you turn right, your field of view will change to somewhere else like that.
Oh, so when AR, does it have to sketch, to do from
Yes,
sketching
you need to
and
start
everything?
from basic animation, and then you can move forward with the complicated AR things.
So, do you still keep your projects like from your study
Yes,
period?
I keep it as a sentimental value.
Oh, sentimental value. So you always look back to like your first time. What inspired you to involve yourself in animation actually?
So for me, from when I was in secondary school, I like to watch TikTok and people editing videos. So at that time, I was into editing videos, and then when I got older, I wanted to make a cartoon. I got this future me thinking that I want to create my own cartoon.
So have you achieved that dreams yet?
I'm still trying,
Oh,
but
it's okay.
it's coming.
Okay, so without wasting any time, let's move on to our topic discussion. So, it's common knowledge that lots of animators use Blender as their software to animate. So, could you introduce to us the software?
So one of the software is Blender, and Blender is a free and open source 3D creation suite. It supports the whole 3D pipeline from modeling, rigging, animation, simulation, rendering, compositing, and motion tracking, right through to video editing and game creations. Advanced users use Blender's API for Python scripting to make the application their own and write specialized tools. These often end up in future reference releases. Blender is great for individuals and small studios because it has a unified pipeline and a responsive development process.
Yes, so and to add something more into Mr. Amir's point, so we are basically in addition, Blender is a cross-platform software and works very well on Linux, Windows, and Mac computers. The interfaces uses the Open Graphics Library, OpenGL in short, to provide a consistent experience across all platforms. If you want to know whether your computer is compatible or it will work on your computer, so just kindly proceed to check the list of supported platforms because they have their very own development team which regularly conducts tests for this particular software. So as a community-driven project under the GNU General Public License, GNU General Public License GPL, anyone can make changes to the base notes, which leads to new features, bug fixes, and better usability. So tell you what, Blender is not only free to use, but you can also invest, participate, and help advance this powerful collaborative tool. So all in all, Blender is your friendly neighborhood 3D software solution.
Wow, so we can do
3D and 2D animation in Blender.
Yeah, of course, because 3D and 2D are the most common animation you can find in daily life.
So, what if like the person never heard of Blender, never touched Blender, and they want to use Blender for the first time? Is there a lot of tutorials on YouTube that is
available on the internet to teach people on how to use Blender? Like if
Well, certainly, since the internet is quite accessible around the world now, so there are a lot of tutorials prepared and uploaded by zealous or passionate animators or YouTubers, content creators on their respective channels. So for any beginners, rookies, no matter what your level on animation, so you can just refer to internet, YouTube, Google, anything. They provide detailed tutorials for you to have a look, to have a reference when doing your very own animation.
okay, so thank you for the quick intro to Blender.
So we're going to do a quick animation tutorial. So I would like to invite both of our speakers to conduct an absolute basic So if you beginner and macam baru berjinak-jinak nak guna Blender and baru berjinak-jinak dalam bidang animation, so this is a really useful for you to watch. Okay, so diorang akan ajarlah cara basic untuk guna Blender.
I'll start with the most basic one. I'll start with the most basic thing, which is you need a camera for your animation. So what's a camera? Cameras are the tools you use to set what's going to be rendered as a part of an image inside of Blender. So like for example, when I fly around inside of my 3D viewport, when I fly around inside of my 3D viewport and I set up a view, so let's say we set up a view where we were looking down or we were looking up from a lower angle like this at a model like my default model. Well, if I wanted to render this view and I was to go in and I was to do a render image, notice how it's actually being rendered out in my scene is totally different than what you're seeing in the viewport. And so the reason that this is because we need to set up a camera that shows us the view of our object. So we basically need to set up a camera and tell Blender, okay, this is our active camera and this is what we want you to render. So what we would want in the situation is instead of me moving around in my viewport and setting up a view, what we would want to do is instead we would want to select a camera like this one, and we would want to use that camera in order to create our animation. So there's a little trick in here which we'll talk more about in a little bit. But if I do a Control 0 and kind of zoom out and then I was to do a render, well, now my rendered image is going to contain what's actually shown in my viewport. Obviously, it's a real quick render from Eve, but you can see how you set the way that things are rendered inside a Blender. Using your camera view and your camera location, and so let's start by looking what the camera actually is. So the camera you can see inside of our scene is basically an object inside of our 3D space, and what the camera does is it has an origin point. Right. Here as well as a viewport on the front side, that's going to show us what that camera is actually going to see. So if we were to like zoom in like this and place our camera in our viewport, you can see how this is showing us exactly what this camera would see from this point. And this actually acts as objects in the 3D space. So let's say that I was to go to the top view like this and use the move tool in order to move this around. So if I tap G and move this, you can see I can move this in the 3D space. In addition, I can also do things like rotating the camera in 3D space. You can also scale this as well. So you can use this basically like an object inside a Blender, and so we'll use that in the future to do things like animating cameras along paths, so that our
It's alright, take your time. We have plenty of time here.
He's nervous, okay, being on live broadcast for the first time. It's okay.
Sorry. So you can see how when I select this, it's selecting the camera option over here. So in addition, notice that when you select a camera object, so I'll select this model for a second, go back and select my camera object, you get an option over here on the right hand side of the page for your object data properties that looks like a little camera. So this little camera is going to contain things having to do with what your camera sees inside of your 3D viewport. We can come back and look at this a little bit later. But I just wanted you to be aware that there is a set of settings contained inside of the camera settings in Blender that's going to affect the way that your cameras acts. Alright, so now let's talk about how to add a camera inside of Blender as well as how to start navigating around. Setting up your camera views. So the way that you add a camera is you basically add it like any object that you would add in the 3D workspace. So what you would do is you would just do a Shift A and you would add a camera. So you just want to click on the button for camera right here. Notice how that got added where our 3D cursor is inside of Blender. So if you want to be a little bit more precise, when you do this, what you can do is before you place your camera, you can do a Shift right click to place your 3D cursor somewhere. Then you can do a Shift A camera and notice how that camera gets placed where my 3D cursor is. And so what we would want to do is we want to start actually editing what your camera looks like. So what it sees, where it is in the 3D space, all of that. And so there's a few ways you can do this. So the first thing is you could do you could just move this camera around manually. So you can just select it, tap the G key and then move it around, and you could try to set things like the camera rotation and all of that. So a lot of that can be found inside of them. Information over here, so you can see how we can adjust things like the rotation on the X, Y and Z axis, things like that. But the problem with that is it's really clunky, right? And so let's find a better way to look through our cameras. So the first thing is whenever you have a camera inside of your model, if you want to look through it, you can use the numpad 0 key in order to jump into that view. So if I hit the 0 key right now, what that's going to do is that's going to jump into the view and it's going to show me what's shown or what the camera is going to see in my viewport. So you can see how right there is this is showing me what my camera sees, but we want to adjust this, right, so that it's showing our car model kind of in the center. And so the way that everyone really does this is basically what they do is they select their camera, and then if they tap the N key and go into the view settings on the right hand side of the page, there's actually an option here for lock 3D camera and not to view. So right now is for example, inside of this camera view, if I zoom in and out, you can see how the camera isn't moving. I could hit the 0 key again to jump out of the view, but it's not really doing what we want it to do. However, if you click on this button for lock camera to view and then navigate around inside of your scene, notice how your camera is now moving along with your view location. So now what we can do is we can just use the view inside of this scene in order to set up the way that our camera is going to look or what our camera is going to see. Then you can also come in here and you can make some fine adjustments. Like for example, for this camera, I don't want this to have a wire rotation, so I'm going to set this to 0. So you can still adjust the transformation over here as well. But basically, this is going to be the fastest way to set up your camera view, is to hit the 0 key and then lock your camera to view. One other trick when you do this, and I'm going to uncheck the lock camera to view for a second, is when you hit the 0 key. Notice how this isn't taking up your full window inside of your viewport. But if you hit the 0 key and then you tap the home key before you lock this to view, what that's going to do is that's going to zoom this camera to the extent of your view right here. So now your full viewport is going to show you what's going to show up in your camera. Then we can just go over here and then just turn on lock camera to just like this. Then once when you're done with that, you can just hit the 0 key to get back out of your camera. Alright, that's from me. Thank you.
Oh, okay, so that Mr. Abdul just show us tutorial of camera movement in Blender. Okay, so camera movement plays an important role also in Blender, not just animation. Okay, so Mr. Melvin, sorry, Mr. Melvin, you can continue with your tutorial.
Okay, so when we open our render software here, you will see something like this, a cube in the middle. So to get things going, firstly, we'll just move the cube up one grid space by clicking G to grab while holding down the control key. Press Shift and A to add a plane. Press S to scale and hit 20. Now we've given ourselves a cube and a floor. Select the cube and press I to set a keyframe for location and rotation. As you press the Object Transform panel, you can see the keyframes of X, Y, Z, location, and rotation. Moving along the timeline to 40, and press I for location and rotation. The solid bars here indicate there's no movement at all happening in between these two keyframes. Alright, and then moving on, go to 20, which is the central point, and then press G and Z to snap the Z axis to move the cube up into the air. Press I for location and rotation. Alright, so now, if we scrub through our cube, it will bounce once in the background. Moving along the timeline further to 70, so we can just copy and paste the previous keyframes with Command or Control C and Command or Control V. And then again, move to the central point, press G and Z to move the cube up, but not quite as high as previous bounce. Press I to hit keyframes for location and rotation. Alright, so now our cube bounces twice. We can copy the same process again, moving slightly forward further in the timeline. Copy and paste, then go to the central point, press G and Z to move the cube up a little bit. Press I to set location and rotation keyframes. Alright, so now if we play through, we have ourselves 3 bounces. Alright, although we have the position of the cube we want, but we haven't got ourselves a realistic movement of bounce. So to do that, we need to open the graph editor. So drag up another window and go to graph editor. As you open the Object Transforms panel, you can still see the location and rotation keyframes here, but they are displayed in graph form. So you can see the interpolation of movement between them. We can only see the blue line here because we are just moving up and down on the z-axis. So first of all, select the z location, and then you can see the highest point represented by this part of the graph. And then going down, up, down, up. The reason we have that kind of soft bounce is because of these curves. So this is just the way Blender calculates the interpolation in between the keyframes. And we can alter this manually to get the movement we want. Alright, so for that first bounce, select the bottom keyframe, right click, and go to handle type free. Now we can select these Bezier handles and we can move them directly. And then doing the same for the other side. Now we have added this very sharp dip in the animation. So the same here. Right click, handle type, and free. And then just proceed to move these handles to give that sharp bounce. The same for the final one. It lands very softly because the curve eases out into that final keyframe. Select the final keyframe. As usual, right click, free, and then move the Bezier curve. Then we can proceed to frame 100. And this is where I want the animation to end. So from what we can see here, the bottom dialog box, you have the range of the animation from start to end point. Click on the end point and type 100. So now when we play it through, the animation will only look after 100 in the viewport. Alright, now we can still see our cube holding in a very awkward way on that first leaf. So we are going to select that top keyframe, stretch it out, and the first keyframe, drag it up. Now that we have done the whole animation, we can see that it's still running a little bit slow. Alright, so what we can do here is to select all the keyframes on the timeline. And then we can just scale them using the S key. Alright, so now we got ourselves a more bouncier and more faster cube. So, and then just as an example of how we can add a bit more movement, so let's go to the 3 rotation values. Go to the highest point of the jump, and select those 3 keyframes and press delete. Do the same for the next jump. And now to change the rotation for the first bounce, our cube will spin through the air. And to make things easier, we can just go over to the object properties here and alter the value. So you will notice when we change the value there, the box turns orange, and this means there's no keyframe set. And so now for instance, we can just type in 180 into the exact value and then press I to set the keyframe. We can do the same to the Y value. Let's say set it to 90 degrees. For the second bounce, we will do the same again at the highest point. Delete those 3 keyframes. Go to the final position. And then maybe this time, let's just change the X value to 90 degrees. Press I to set the keyframe. And voila! We've got ourselves a simple and basic animation here.
So that is a quite detailed tutorial, a slow detail. So if you wanna watch again, you can go to our YouTube later. We will set it for you guys to rewatch tutorial from Mr. Amirul and Mr. Nabil. So unfortunately, as our broadcast session almost comes to an end, so I'd love to do some Q&A sessions with our audience. So if you have any questions you want to ask regarding to animation, you can ask in the chat. We will be reading comments and answer your questions. So do you have any questions? So, the first questions. How many render engines does Blender have?
So, well, basically, there are 3 of them. The first one will be AV, the second one will be Cycles, and then the third one will be Workbench.
So you see that Blender has 3 main render engines. So may I know the difference between each render engines?
Yeah, sure thing. So, firstly, AV is a fast render engine. It's great for previewing scenes and projects, while rendering speed is crucial. But however, while it can produce very good quality images, it doesn't match the realism of Cycles. Meanwhile, Cycles is a high quality render engine. It uses ray tracing to show how light affects the objects in a scene. And this takes much longer to render, but the results are also are very often worth it, and especially for animations, of course. And finally, for Workbench, the engine is for fast, interactive viewport rendering. It's mainly used for modeling and sculpting, but not for final renders.
Okay, so what is the purpose of each type of light in Blender?
Okay, so the first one is point light. So it emits light equally in a direction from a single point, similar to a light bulb. The second one is sunlight. Simulates sunlight, providing parallel rays of light, useful for outdoor scenes. The third one is spotlight. Projects light in a cone shape, like a flashlight or spotlight, allowing for more directional lighting. And the last one is area light, which is it emits light from a rectangular or square area, providing soft shadows and a more diffuse lighting effect.
Oh, okay. So, my lecturer said that we need to prepare a storyboard for our upcoming animation project. So, I want to know what the purpose of a storyboard in animation is.
So
You can proceed, Mr. Ashman.
the storyboard is a great way to share the vision of the project. It's a visual representation of how the story will unfold, and it helps identify potential issues early on, so they can be fixed before a lot of time and resource are invested in the animation processes.
Okay, so how to render your object as an image? The demo.
Sorry?
How to render your object as an image?
How to render your object as an image. So,
Use that nice car as an example. Macam nak render kereta tadi.
I see. I think that's basically we can just say so when we want to render the model into an image, after we done all the modeling, we can just there is a render windows at the upper side of the render software, so we can just click render, and then before the clicking render we can try to click the viewport shot. So it will show you the pre-rendered result of your model. So when you are satisfied with your result, Okay, so boleh demo kan how to render your scene as a video? Okay, so
another question. What is more popular, 2D or 3D animation? Someone asked, what is more popular, 2D or 3D animation?
That you can say that depends on the popularity of 2D or 3D. So it depends on the audience who is watching, what they like, and what the industry is doing. So 2D animation has a long history and is nostalgic, especially in traditional hand-drawn formats like Disney films. However, 3D animation is now very popular because of new technology in blockbuster films and video games. So in short, both are incredibly popular. So they are about balance among themselves. So each has its own artistic and storytelling strengths.
Okay, so do you have any more questions?
Do you all have any more questions to ask?
Okay, so boleh demokan how to render your scene as a video. So sorry, but we cannot do at this time. We cannot do live demo since the laptop for Blender is not connected to the live broadcast. So, so we'll just try to explain, and you can try to do it yourself at home. Explain to
Okay, so basically, in short, after you done all the sculpting and all the stuff, modeling, lighting, so you can just click the render button from the Windows workspace of your Blender software. But you can click render animation for the video, or render image just for the picture of your sculpture of your module. So after rendering, and then it will take some time to render, and then voila, you have your own very video, your very own image of your module.
Okay, so do you have any more questions? If not, then unfortunately we have come to an end of our last session. So thank you all for all the comments. Thank you for your participation today. It means a lot to us that you join and watch us today. So in short, animation is an incredible field with endless possibilities. Like there's a huge range of techniques and impressive software to use, like Blender as an animation outlet for storytelling, for expression. So animation is really great for communication, for problem solving, for entertainment. So let's explore and push to the boundaries of animation together. So thank you to our speakers, Mr. Melvin and Mr. Amirul, for conducting short tutorials today. And we will catch up with you all soon.
That's all from us. Catch you all soon again.
Alright, coming up tomorrow is a rare and interesting topic. You all wouldn't want to miss, so stay tuned.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
When I think of you sometime, and I want to spend some time with you, just the two of us. We can make it if we try, just the two of us. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Building castles in the sky, just the two of us. You and I. We look for love, no time for tears. Wasted water's all that is, and it don't make no flowers grow. Good things might come to those who wait, but not for those who wait too late. We gotta go for all we know. Just the two of us. We can make it if we try.